On digital and online.
This is BBC Radio 5 Live.
Thank you very much, Rachel. Morning to you. It's 10 o'clock. It's Stephen Nolan standing in for Victoria Derbyshire on 5 Live. Today, house prices have fallen for the first time in a year, according to a survey from the Royal Institution of Chartered Surveyors.
I've had a flat on the market since August of 2007, trying to sell at 105,000, now down to 91,000. Still can't find a buyer. The market is as dead as a dodo.
Now, if you're trying to sell a house, we'd like to hear from you today. 0500 909 693. How much have you had to drop the prices by? And after you've dropped them, is it still sitting there with absolutely no viewers? You can help us paint a picture right across the country of how much you've got to drop your prices by to get rid of your house. Indeed, if you're trying to buy, are you getting in there? What type of bargains are you getting? 85058 on the text, the email, nolan@bbc.co.uk. Plus, record number of students are being turned away from university because of a drop in the number of places. And we'll have the latest on the war crime trial of the former Liberian President Charles Taylor. Naomi Campbell's former agent has been giving evidence again this morning.
He indicated he was going to send her diamonds.
Did you hear Charles Taylor say those words? Yes or no?
It's very difficult to remember the conversation.
No.
Good morning, I'm Will Perry. The Aston Villa owner Randy Lerner is on his way to Villa Park as the search begins for O'Neill's replacement.
And they're black in London, yellow in New York, and now one council wants all taxis in Bristol to be blue. Not everyone's happy.
I think it's ridiculous. Seriously, I do. I think, well, look, I just bought that 2 weeks ago and I got to go and get it sprayed.
Everybody out on the street, drunk or sober, knows that this is a taxi. It could be yellow with pink spots, and they'd still know it's a taxi.
Time of a recession and you've got to spray your car blue. If you're a taxi driver, no doubt we'll hear from you today. 85058 on the text, email nolan@bbc.co.uk. They just wanted to cut me off my prime there, didn't they? Here's Justine Green with the 10 o'clock news.
Thanks very much. Good morning. A survey suggests house prices have fallen for the first time in a year. The Royal Institution of Chartered Surveyors says the number of buyers has dropped off while the number of sellers has increased. Ian Perry is from Harvest Housing Group.
Our forecasts are always that house prices will rise slowly. Some years they obviously haven't risen in the last 2 years, but taking a long view, a 10 or 20 year view, house prices have always risen slightly above the rate of inflation, and we would expect that to continue if you take that long view up to 2020.
This is BBC Radio 5 Live.
Hello, BBC. Call 0500 909 693. Calls are free from most landlines, but some networks and mobile operators will charge. Text 85058. Text will be charged at your standard message rate. This is 5 Live.
Here's the sport now with Will. Okay, thank you very much indeed. Morning to you. 6 minutes past 10 o'clock. 5 Live, the name of the game. We're talking about house prices this morning. They fell last month. This for the first time in a year, according to the Royal Institution of Chartered Surveyors. Now, the organisation says more estate agents across the country are reporting prices falling as the market again gets overloaded with sellers and buyers stay away. Backs up similar surveys by two of the largest mortgage lenders. We're wanting you to help us paint a picture this morning across the country of what it's actually like on the ground when you're trying to sell your house. How much have you had to reduce it by? How angry are you that this house price bubble was allowed to happen in the first place? Who are you blaming? Indeed, there might be some of you that are sitting back. You didn't get involved in what you might perceive as the greed. You're sitting back and you're thinking, let them fall even further and further and further. You want it to happen so your kids will be able to buy a house in a few years' time. Want to hear from a range of you this morning. 0500 909 693. No doubt the property developers will get a look in. They'll get mentioned. Any sympathy for them? On the email nolan@bbc.co.uk, the text 85058. Let's get a sense then of where we are. The Chief Executive of the National Association of Estate Agents is Peter Bolton King. Peter, good morning to you.
Good morning to you.
It's just the usual, Peter, isn't it, that when we talk to an estate agent, they'll always talk the market up, and it's not as bad. But But down for the first time in a year.
Yeah, I mean, but I said this was going to happen, quite honestly. And, you know, what about all those...
First estate agents ever done
well,
that.
No. But what about all those people last year who said, no, prices are not going up. You're talking a load of rubbish, Peter Bolton King. You're in the comedy shop. And prices went up by 9-10% last year, which people generally weren't expecting. And this is the problem at the moment. You know, it is all over the place. We're in an uncertain period. And, you know, our members, although prices have come down, which is fine, we said they would come up and down and sort of bubble along, but our members yesterday in our report said that actually July was, funnily enough, very busy. And although prices have come down, they were reporting increased sales compared with June. So, you know, it's not all doom and gloom.
So you're reporting increased sales on lower value properties?
Yes, that's what our members reported last month. But again, I would urge caution on this because, you know, somebody said to me this morning, I wish everybody would stop doing these monthly surveys because you cannot look at a month in isolation. Let's look at quarter at a time. So, you know, we're in for a rocky patch. It's going to go up and down, but I can take you to parts of the country, and I was talking to somebody this morning, South London, where there are loads of people after very few properties at the moment. So it's patchy.
Yeah, well, London's a different market in itself, isn't it? And there's actually an ultra prime market, the 5 million plus homes in London. There's still a demand for those, and indeed they're going up.
No, I wasn't referring to the top end because you know, the reports that have come out have talked about, you know, most of the top end is going to overseas buyers. I was talking about sort of normal properties. But if you don't want London, I can take you to North Wales, to the
it's
sort of
dire in Wales.
No, it's not. I was talking to one of our members on the Anglesey and that area of Snowdonia, except for 1 month in March, has had a better year this year every month than he did last year. That's in Llangollen.
Yeah, but it's all relative, isn't it, Peter? Because if we think about those peaks in 2006-07 and the massive drops that we experienced since, you know, if you take where I'm from, Northern Ireland,
yes,
from the peak in 2006. Now, Northern Ireland is highly dependent on the public sector, and you'll find that regions throughout the UK which are dependent on the public sector, they will be taking a big jolt at the moment. Northern Ireland, 60% down.
I know,
from the peak of 2006.
But with respect, Northern Ireland was, you mentioned sort of London market being special. I think the Northern Ireland market was special because you will be aware as anybody how low the prices were for many, many reasons. Prices, it was lagging. Northern Ireland prices were lagging way behind the rest of the UK. So they actually, to the top of the market, had one of the biggest jumps. So I would expect some fallback there. Where you are right, though, public sector, spot on. Public sector areas are going to have a problem.
How much of a problem, Peter?
I think there are always people who need to move for various reasons, and it comes down to realistic pricing. So, you know, the problem we have at the moment is there is no such thing as a single market. There's not even a single market in a particular city or town. It depends on the type of property and the demand for each bit of the area.
Stay with me, Peter. Jonathan Davis, an economist and investment advisor with us this morning. Morning to you, Jonathan.
Hi, Stephen.
Nice to talk to you again. Melanie Bean, Director at Mortgage Broker Private Finance. Morning to you, Melanie.
Good morning.
And Kevin Thomas, who put his house in Sutton Coldfield on the market in February. Still haven't got a buyer, Kevin. Morning to you.
No, absolutely not. From February this year through to August now, and a trickle of viewers rather than a deluge, let's say.
I guess you just heard Peter Bolton King this morning, Kevin, suggest that, look, if you price your house at the right amount, it'll go.
Well, I mean, it's priced based on what the agents tell us, and you know, you get competitive quotes off both, and you take the best one, so you get a feel. And the reality is, since February, we've had probably 1, maybe 2 viewings a month since February on average, and of those that have offered, which has been 2 or 3 over that period, they're all coming in 10 to 12% below the asking price. They're looking at 9 or 10 properties, and they're taking a chance on someone being vulnerable enough to have to take that decision.
And why wouldn't they?
Exactly. Yeah, you do exactly the same. But I personally support the view that there are, certainly in our area, at the mid-price range, we're in the 220 bracket, so modest detached family home in the suburbs, that there are far more sellers than buyers, and it's massively a buyer's market, and we've just got to sit it out and wait for it to balance itself out.
So what this survey, it's out today from the Royal Institute of Chartered Surveyors. Let's just have a look at what it actually has said. It said that house prices have fallen for the first time this month. This is since June 2009. Why is that significant? First time, July 2010. That's, of course, after the emergency budget by this new coalition government in June, when we're talking about cuts, and more cuts. So is that negative sentiment? Are people starting to rein themselves in, realise that they can't afford the huge mortgages they took on? And Jonathan Davis, what is that going to do to house prices in the future? This survey, there's a negative reading, Jonathan, published by the RICS today of -8, and that's consistent. Without getting into the psychobabble about this, that's consistent with the slippage in prices of about 2 to 3% for the second half of this year. That's what that would predict.
Yes, it's about time too that the estate agents have finally got to grips with reality. You've got the president of the National Association of Estate Agents there saying that there are special parts of the country, which is a load of nonsense, because every single part of the country went up 300, 400, 500% over the last 15 years. Therefore, in this downturn, which has started, in fact, in 2007, and now we see the continuation of the downturn, every single part of the country will go down. And in short, I'm looking at a 30% fall in prices absolutely everywhere from this point. In other words, if prices are already down 10 or 20%, you can add on a further 30% onto that over the next 2 or 3 years.
Peter?
Well, I'm prepared to put some money on this, Jonathan. You and I have talked about this before. There is a big problem in this country, which is unlike America and other parts of the world, where we have an overall shortage of property. So,
not true. There are 700,000 empty homes. The reason why the market is deteriorating is fourfold. One, buy-to-let is down 80%. 2, there is no mortgages out there. Mortgage numbers are a half of what they used to be. 3, the economy is dire and unemployment is about to rise. And 4, we've just had the biggest budget cuts in history. Put it all together and you have the recipe for the biggest house price crash in history. To say that we are different from other countries is nonsense. We're the same as everywhere. We've had the biggest house price bubble in Europe, and we're going to have the biggest house price crash in Europe.
We will have to wait and see, because I just do not perceive that.
Hold on. No, Jonathan, let him finish. Jonathan, let Peter finish. Jonathan, you've got to let Peter finish. Go ahead, Peter.
Thank you. There were some very senior economic figures who produced a report within the last 2 weeks that said, for the reasons that I've said, that there is an overall medium term, not talking about the short term, the medium term in this country, we have a problem on the supply of property. They were indicating, and it's a senior economic group, they were indicating that, yeah, it's going to be rough. We're going to get these ups and downs, and I don't deny that. But overall, we are not going to see the sort of level of drops that Jonathan is predicting. I don't believe will happen. I don't think it'll happen.
Well, the National Institute of Economic and Social Research, last week they said that property prices adjusted for inflation would be lower in 2015 than now. PricewaterhouseCoopers last month, they said there is a 70% chance that real-term property prices will be below the 2007 peak levels in 2015, and a 50% chance they'll be below those levels in 2020. So that's nearly a decade away. PricewaterhouseCoopers saying there's a 50% chance.
Exactly, Stephen. You've got to look at this in the long term. Now, just before this piece, you had the Chartered Institute, Chartered Surveyors, saying that if you look at it over the 20 years, then you can see that prices rise. Well, look, what has happened over the last 20 years? We've had interest rates and inflation fall from 15% to 0.5%. We've had unemployment fall. We've had debt and credit go through the roof. Well, all of these things are reversing. Interest rates cannot fall, unemployment's rising, and credit is falling. Thus, if you look over the next 20 years, and I'm talking 20 years for this market, in the doldrums, you will not see above inflation rises. It is simply not possible.